All right. Hello, everyone. Um, Today, I want to continue the Blue Prism Advanced Consolidation Exercise Study Tips video. First, I want to start off by thanking Sahar and John, who are really the only two people who have made any indication that it's useful to them and have encouraged me to continue. Because I had already made up my mind that, you know what, I'm not getting any engagements. Why am I wasting my time putting this together? And so, thanks to them, we get to continue. That being said, I did notice some changes now. As most of you are aware, Blue Prism has upgraded their exam effective this month, actually. And so, they've kind of upgraded the study curriculum in certain ways. Like they have like a few more modules, and apart from that, they've I think the important thing to us here is that they've made some changes to the consolidation exercise. Not as far as what we're supposed to do, but if you remember the first four videos, I struggled a lot with respying a lot of the application modular elements because they were configured for Internet Explorer and I was using Microsoft Edge. So I'm pleased to say that they've resolved that problem and there isn't much spying and basically reconfiguring the application modular to do anymore. But um, for those who might need some guidance, I've made some adjustments to kind of because I really had to start the whole thing all over again, right? So what I noticed was that when I downloaded the new advanced consolidation exercise one, the first thing I said was that the application modeler actually works for Microsoft Edge a lot. A very little adjustments need to make. So that's good. But then it came without the release that I exported from the Blue Prism University did not have Microsoft Excel VBO in it. It had Microsoft Excel VBO extended, right? So I had to manually go to Blue Prism Digital Exchange, right? And you've got to be signed in to do this. So, and then I searched for Microsoft Excel VBO among the assets, right? Microsoft Excel VBO, right? I did that, and I downloaded the assets and then imported it into um, my because this is what came here, right? It came with the package that they gave us from Blue Prism University, but this is what the current process layer, the Microsoft Excel VBO, um, is the one the current process layer uses. Um, let's see now. Almost doesn't make sense what I'm doing. Here it is. So I had to manually, this is what I downloaded from Blue Prism Digital Exchange and included it in the release because this was what came with it. So I had to manually look for this one. So when you first import the process, you might notice that this particular Microsoft Excel VBO is missing, and you might need to download it. That's like the fastest way to resolve the errors. So I did that, and I included it in the release by just basically file, import, release. After I downloaded it to my downloads folder, I just picked it up from here and put it in. Okay. So once I did that, a lot of the errors in the process layer disappeared. Process layer I'm opening now. And the other thing I did was I disabled font smoothing. I'm going to put these notes in the video link so you can review them closer. And I just watched that. You basically go to your settings on your computer and disable the font smoothing. Then the other things I did that were different was um, I created. Um, oh, this is like a replication, right? So I created quotes input file location as where the input for your automation is gonna be, right? My computer, for example, my computer name is Yinka right here. So, but your computer name might be different. I put mine in documents, right? And then Blue Prism training. This is the path to the file. So the thing that is important is that you have to create environmental variables for them, right? And then connect them to the process layer. For example, um, if you go to the populate queue page, um, you you will notice that they have this set up as environmental variables. I think that's new, but don't quote me on that. They want to make sure that you understand how to use environmental variables or environment variables, which are those that you don't store at the process layer, but can be easily changed at the control room or level, right, rather than the process layer. So they want to make sure that you understand how to use those. The exposure must be environment. Then you go here and you basically you go to the excuse me, this, right, you go to system, and then you go to environment variable under processes, and you create them right here, right? So as I was saying, I had to first of all do this, create quotes, input archive folder, and then you say where it is, no quotes required. Same thing for the input folder, say where it is, and then you create another one for BP travel window tiles. Same thing, and then I'll show you how to do it if you don't already know for the last one, which is all you do is you've got to make sure you click on add variable, and in this case we're looking to make one for the launch URL, right? That's the application that will be launched. Oops, silly, took the right, and that's going to be a text type, and then you describe it, Blue Prism BP travel application URL, call it whatever you want to, and then you put the URL there, which I already made a note of here, because that is something they want to test out. Okay, do you even know how to create environmental variables, right? So not a big deal, but just I thought, for those who don't know, I should show you at least how you did it. And then you hit apply at the bottom left, bottom right. I'm sorry. Once you've done that, should be fine. So you make sure these are created, and then you kind of connect them wherever they are needed. Now I've already gone ahead and done that here, But once you've done that here, it'll pick, as long as this name, this create quotes Excel input folder is the same as what you have here, then it'll understand that you're referring to this. The automation will understand that. Okay, so that's important. So I did that for these two already, and I'm going to show you how to do it for the one I haven't done. I think we have a situation where we're going to need to do that here. I believe it's in the startup page, the launch BP travel. If you view in actions in Object Studio, you'll find that the URL is hard coded in here. So an example of applying that would be, hit environment, and of course, it's saying that it's missing. So I'm not sure. So the URL must be the same, launch URL. So I just copy this just to make sure, cancel. And I'll go back here. Maybe I'm gonna paste this here. Must be exactly what is there. And then apply. I don't think it was applied. I think that's what it is. Right, now it's applied. So I've clicked apply and it has responded. So I think that's what it was. So I'm going to go back to that place and try again. I'm going to open this, view this in Object Studio. I'm going to basically change the exposure to environment, and it will recognize it immediately because it's the same name. But the main thing is that it's not going to be taking the hard-coded value anymore from here, rather it's going to be reading from the environment, at the environment level, right? And the purpose of that, for uh, just a minute, let me type this, launch URL to environment variable. gosh. All right, so that's what we did. And the purpose of that is that if you need to change that at short notice, it's quite easy to do it just in this one place, right? And every process everywhere that uses this URL will respond to that. If you don't do it this way, you have to sort of go go to each process that uses this URL and make a change if it needs to be changed, right? So that's the conceptual application of this one. And so we're going to move on. That's a really big one they wanted to test. And we're going to go on to, I think at the time the last video we ended at the point where it navigated to this page successfully. So with the new application modeler, I'm going to open this object here, which is the Blue Prism basic applications level. And I think one thing that is missing from this page, from what I can see, everything works. Like in the previous version I made, you had to like respy everything, right? So that's a big relief. Uh, you can't, in practice, have a page um, that doesn't call the attach page. In other words, it's best practice to have like an attach application here before you even start doing anything. And the reason why, I think where we're at is a great example. If the application is not already attached and you call this page, which is what you're about to do now, you start, you hit this, and you go to this page. If the application is not already launched, it's going to throw an error because it's going to come here, it's going to start looking for this element, the navigation menu. But because it's not attached at that point, it's going to throw an error and swing this way, not find it, right? So in order to make sure it is always like attached to the application you are trying to work on, you have to put an attached page on every page that is not the launch page. Okay, you've got to make sure like they did that here. So I believe it was intentional that they left this absent. Um, so I'm going to just solve that problem by I'm sorry, by dragging a page here and referencing the attached page, right? And then after that, it's just a matter of including it in the flow, right? So what it will do is to start, make sure the application is attached, right? And then attempt to do what it's supposed to do. So that's really important. So I'm going to put that in here. Added attach page to left menu action page, right? That's like Greek to anybody who doesn't know Blue Prism. All right, so having done that, I think we've resolved a lot of the issues that you might have come across up to this point. Um, so just to illustrate, I'm going to take this document, copy. Where was I now? I think this is the one I'm working on here. Well, it's already there. Quotes, right? Then I'm going to, no, 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 I'm sorry. There. I think this is where I want my quotes these days. I want it in here. Again, the URL for this is users, documents, Blue Prism training, BP Travel Codes, which is BP Travel New Codes request, which is what I put in, what I hard coded in my environment variable here, right? It's the same thing that I encoded here, right? So that's where I want my input file to be, and that's what I just did. I put it here, all right? And then just for the sake of catching up, I'm going to run the process again. So I'm going to go to the queues, code request. Oh, there is one more thing I wanted to say, and I don't know if it's important, but I think I should mention it. Um, to create a queue, you go to the system area, and you go to workflow and work queues, workflow, work queues, and then basically, you basically you click new here if you wanted to create a new one, new down here, which I don't, I already did, and this is the name of the queue that we are going to be using. That's how you create it. The thing I wanted to mention was that make sure that the key name is item key, right? Because that's the name of your header in the process. So it will understand that you wanted to use this as the key in the control room, as something like what you see here. Back to control room now. See? So it understands that, okay, put this there. If you don't do that, you might not see this displayed. Okay. Other than that, I'm going to select all, um, and I'm going to delete because I want to do it again. Refresh view. Select all, mark, select cases as exception. So it does that, and then you can delete all. I just kind of want to start again, right? And also test whether everything is working good. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go to close some of these things out. Oof, a lot of stuff open. I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to the process layer, and I'm going to clear this. I'm going to hit, make sure it's at Speedy Gonzalez space, and I'm going to hit run. So if all is well, we should see the application launch. Again, you can look at the bottom, this part here, just to see what is it doing right now. It's probably going to fail because we're not seeing the application. Anyway, just let it run. I can't bear it. I gotta touch it. Oh, right. So, problem here. I'm going to stop this. I already had it open. I apologize. Forgive me. Let's not start being too scatterbrained today. I had it open before. I'm going to make sure they're all closed. I'm going to make sure all browsers are closed. I don't know that I need any of these. And then we'll do it again. Main page, hit start. Right. So we're just watching. I have this enterprise level robots that I'm watching on another computer. It's beautiful when these things work. It does amazing things. It actually works for like 20 minutes straight, doing lots of things for each queue item. And it's just, for lack of a better phrase, beautiful to behold, the fruit of your labor. So anyway, I was using one eye to look at it. It's working great. All right. So yeah, at this point, I put a breakpoint here because I wanted to make sure all items have been added to queues successfully. The file has been moved to the archive folder, which again we did in previous videos. So I'm just gonna quickly go back to the control room area, refresh the view. Yeah, that's right, refresh the view. So you see all our items in queue. Great. So at this point, it's going to start picking them one by one and attempting to process them on the next page, right? So the next page, according to this main page, it has populated the queue. It's going to go get the next item. And if there is a next item, to go to navigate to create quotes page, right? So I'm going to again pause it here, just like we did the last time, and press play to see whether that will work. Okay, so I gotta open this. It's already navigated here, just like we expected. Now, I rather like having it like side by side, so that we can see. I don't know if it's important, but I just feel like I like to see what it's doing when it's doing it, and if you have it configured to work, it can work in the background if you have it configured that way. Now I learned doing surface automation that you have to have whatever you're automating visible for the surface automation technique to work well. So that's kind of where I picked up this habit. But it's also good for, because you're seeing what is happening in real time, right? So that's why I prefer side by side. It's not compulsory unless you're using like surface automation. So it has navigated to the page. Now remember we're on the main page. It has started up, populated queue, gotten the next item, it has picked up the first one, navigated to create codes, and now it's about to go to this page. We don't know whether it will work yet. I don't know. Okay, but what they asked us to do at the consolidation exercise level is to configure some logic to make sure that emails are checked for, if you like, um, validity, right? So I'm just going to add that on. If you see here, they've checked inside this um, how do you say this decision stage that is adults in number, right? So they've done a few checks here. They've done one for adults, they've done one for children, and if it's a no, they throw an exception because they want us to say, hey, what kind of exception is this? Which you can do right now. It's a business exception when the data when it's like something that could have been avoided, right? It's a business exception, so that's part of the test, right? But if it's something like an application failure or something that cannot be controlled, not wrong data, then yeah, that would be a system exception. So part of the test or the exercise is for you to be able to tell the difference. So if for example you put a data in the data sheet, which is by now in here, you know, just for the sake of us viewing it, it's already in the queue, so we don't really need this anymore. If what they're saying is that if this is not a number, then throw an arrow, right? I don't know if there's anyone like that actually, but if it isn't, then throw an arrow. Okay. So if somebody put an F here, for example, then it will throw an error that, oops, this is not correct, right? Somebody put an F here. But we're not going to do that. I'm just saying that to illustrate the point of these decision checks here. So one for adults, one for children, and one of the tests we're supposed to, shall we say, prove that we're capable of accomplishing is to test the emails that are supplied again in this workbook, which I should open again, to see if any of them is perhaps not valid, right? So I'm going to select all and then hover to the edge of the first column, look for black cross, and double click to spread everything evenly, right? So essentially our task is to, cross-check any of these to see if there's anything wrong with them. And, there are a lot of emails, right? And instead of us looking through and saying, hey, which one is no good, which is not, we just set some logic to check for us, right? Um, and that's what the task is. So um, I think there are a number of ways you could do this, but the simpler way is to just add another decision stage here and say, sorry, I'm checking something here for my robots. I'm actually at work, but when you make robots, you can just let them do the work and, you know, you just do your own thing. All right, so as I was saying, um, one of the things you want to do is you want to there's an expression you use. I think, well, before I do this, I think I'm going to create a data item that is a Boolean, or perhaps a better way of saying it is flag in Blue Prism. That's whatever is true or false is Boolean, right? But we use the term flag in Blue Prism. I want to default to false, and then I'm going to call it check email. And then I'm going to write an expression that's basically um, checks that is the email correct or valid, And then if it's valid, then set check email to true, right? And the simplest way to do that is to just say, look inside the string of, and just so I carry you along. Um, let's see what's the easiest way to do that. Let me go back one step to the navigate to the populate queue page. At this point here, where you're creating the create queue case. Don't know if I opened that too fast. This point here, right? Uh, just one of them. This is where you named different variables or the different, you basically created the columns, column titles. So the one for email is this, right? I quote item dot email. But that's another thing that has changed. This used to be called item data dot email. So I don't know if you're aware, but this was item data dot email in the last version of the consolidation exercise. So something to note. I'm just catching that now. But regardless, the headers of the columns, right? And the one we're interested in checking is emails. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm essentially going back to that page where I was trying to make an adjustment. I'll just call this check email valid, and we'll use an expression. I could do the fancy way and just write this out here, but I think it's good to use um, these functions down here because that's kind of what they wanted us to practice on. So I'm going to use the in string one. Again, it's not the only way to do it. This is one way to do it. What is the text expression to be set? Let me make this bigger. And that is, I'm going to put this in square brackets, the quote item dot email. And then what are you looking for inside there? It's this. At. Every email is going to have at in it, right? And then you can just say paste. So instead of course, you can also write the expression if you're good at that kind of stuff. But this is essentially saying check inside quote item dot email, any of these email, it's going to do it line by line, right? So if any of them for whatever reason does not have an at in it, then chances are that it's an invalid email, right? So that's what this expression does. But then it's not complete, right? Um, if if this is you know, I think I'm going to change my mind about it. I don't want to use like a decision stage because this doesn't like it doesn't quite capture what I'm trying to show you. So I'm going to just copy this expression and I'm going to use like a calculation stage instead because I wanted to set this check email item to true or false. So to do that, I'm going to use the calculation stage. I'm just paste that expression here. So as long as this is not non-existent, because if it checks the email using this expression you have written, such as szario@hotmail.com, and there's no at in it, then you'll get a zero, right? But if there's an at, it will give you the location of where the at is, which in this case would be like number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, something like that. It will just put 9 or 10 as a number. That's where's the location of the at. That's what this expression does. But what you're trying to say that is, look, if you don't find it, then mark. Then if you don't find it, then mark this. Where's my flag? Check email as true. All right. So hold on a minute. Yeah. So I think a better way to explain this is that this expression is essentially checking inside this, for example, S Nazario to see if there is an at, and it might the at is probably at location number 10 in this string, right? Which means that it is not zero, right? In other words, this expression is true if there's an at in S Nazario at hotmail.com, for example. An at meaning this expression, right? So chances are that if it reads this, it's gonna find out that the location is not 0 but say 10, and that means that this expression is true, right? That is, it is not equal to 0 because there's an at in snazario at hotmail.com. And if it's not equal to 0, it's going to mark this check email variable, flag variable, or data item that I just created as true. So it will only mark it false, right, when this is equal to 0, when it doesn't find an at. So that's the logic behind this one. Again, it's a lot less complicated than using regex, which is another way to do it, right? And then, oh, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be pointing to the calculation stage. Then the calculation stage, I have to name, well, just to save time, I'll give it this header. Check if email is correct or valid. Just to be more explicit, right? And then this one now checks if this check email is true, right? Which is, where are you, the flags? If it is true, then move on. Notice I didn't put it in quotes because check email is a flag variable, right? It can either be true or false. Um, so I'm going to have to give this in a email valid. So that means, did you find an at? If it's true, then go ahead and continue to create the code. But if it's not true, then you've got to mark it as an exception and throw some, you know, throw some kind of error. So similar to what they did here, very, very similar. So if it's not true, so I'm just going to copy this. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm sorry. Um, are you allowing me to copy this or? All right, I'm not sure, but we'll find out. So go back to, it's a quick quote here. So paste. Yeah, it did. Yes, it did. So essentially, you know, we're going to follow the same logic. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, luckily. And then instead of this little node here, I'm going to just use a business exception such as this, right? And of course, I'm going to change the context to match, but something like that. That's what we do. So just to finish the logic, my no email is not valid. Oops, I'm sorry. Are you asleep? Oh, I don't know what's going on here, but this comes here, right? And then I can right click on this and just to switch. If the email is valid, go on and finish the job. If the email is not valid, then go this way. Now, what is my business exception message? Invalid email supplied. I don't know if we have any such case, but it'd be nice to see how this works. And then, of course, this is not item.data.children. Well, you know what? Maybe. Okay, right. Now, we have to be very careful here. I think earlier in this video, what does it add to the? Oh my gosh. So yes, it does add this here. And so, sorry, I'm a little bit scatterbrained today, but I better correct this impression very quickly. So what we're looking for is item data.email because it's going to be reading that from the queue. Item data is going to pick them one at a time .email. Okay. And then this is what I'm going to put. Going to be pulling that from the queue or control room. That's what I'm going to put here as, because I don't need children. In this case, it's item data.email I need. So if I have a business exception, it's going to say, oh, invalid email supplied and give me whatever the email it found is. Otherwise, it's going to go on to this business object, which I'm going to open now. If I open it, we have create quotes. As you can see, as is best practice, the first thing you do is you make sure that the application that you are going to work on is attached. and then you sort of run um, the quotes. Now, I don't know, is there anything else they want us to change that is important? I could tell you that this, the way you handle this, in my own humble opinion, is that you go to your system time, you adjust, and you basically convert. Now, I'm using like Windows 11. I just bought this computer, so it's really fancy. But you basically want to change your region to. So I don't know that it's going to be the same thing, right? To United Kingdom, right? And then you do that, and then it changes your time to match the time in the United Kingdom, right? Yeah. So you change your region and you change like where I'm at UTC minus 8. I believe the time in UK is UTC itself. I wonder where that is. It's UTC exactly. Come on. Where's the plus zero? Plus two, plus one. So I believe that's UK. Yeah, so there it is. This is about London. Right? So that's what the time is over there, 7:33 p.m. So my recommendation is that you do that to your computer before you run this automation. Um, I don't know if there's anything else we need to change before we actually try, but um, I think one thing I noticed was that there is an error in this object that we just opened here, um, which is this. It says, I don't know why it doesn't read good on this Windows, but it says row one has no application element set. So if I go to stage, it's basically saying there's a problem here. And what I noticed is that it used um, an actual, they're saying don't write anything, right? But they haven't actually defined the elements. They're not supposed to write anything. Um, so it's the same elements here. So I'm going to open the neighbor. It's input returning date. That's the element. So I'm going to put that there. Input returning date. Put that here. And, you know, if I refresh this, I should have a zero error. So that's it. Um, that should be enough for now. And at the next video, we're going to actually run the automation and see whether it works. So I hope this wasn't too. I'm trying to shorten them a little bit so that we can I can keep your attention a little more. But thank you for encouraging me to continue, John and Sahar. I appreciate that and look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye.